Good morning, everybody. So, today Frank decided to let me take over OSD Chapel, and so today we're going to talk about Mission Scranton. So, how many of you have heard of Mission Scranton, just out of curiosity? Awesome, a lot of you, good. So, a lot of you might know a lot about us already. So, Mission Scranton, it's a inner city ministry where we go into housing projects, particularly one in Scranton, PA. And a big thing as we go into this community is that it is like a dark place. There are so many struggles there. Some of you have come from family backgrounds that the kids that we work with experience there. And so for us, we go in there, and as I went in there as a student here back in 2012, my mind was just blown by like the amount of needs there and how much people didn't have a Bible. They didn't understand like who God was. I'm talking about Abraham in the Old Testament, and they're like, Abraham Lincoln? I'm like, nope, not Abraham Lincoln. And so it's like these things that where I grew up in a Christian home, I'm just assuming that everyone's heard about God. But as I went into the city of Scranton, I realized there are so many unreached places in our own country that we say is one nation under God, and that just blows my mind. So as we go there, our big mission is, our statement is empowering inner city communities to live victoriously. So there's a lot of losses they have, a lot of struggles. There's a lot of risk with poverty, risk with hunger, abuse, just the physical abuse, sexual abuse. There's so many things that are there that the kids we work with face every day. And for them to go home is not a safe place. It's a place where, for some of them it is, but for some of them, it's survival every single day. And so for us, we go in there, we want to show them like, you can have victory, you can have opportunity, but really, the ultimate thing is we want to show them that you can have victory in a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so for us, we use different languages to kind of share how we do ministry so people in the secular world understand what we're practically doing. But really what that means is we're about going into the world and making disciples. The founder of this ministry, Dr. Mike Stollard, he started this back in 1994, so back when I was in diapers still. He started it then, and his big passion was like churches so often, and then even something like this campus here, we can get caught in our own bubble and comfortable, and we don't really do anything for the community. And so his big concept was, I want to take the church to the people. He doesn't mean take a church building to people, but he means taking a group of believers, a body of believers, to the lost and being a light to them where they're at. And that's something I've loved. It's been super exciting to see. So really for us, like what do we try to do? We go down there and we try to connect with them. We value, and what that really means is we value being relationship oriented. We try to reflect how Jesus did his ministry from going to heaven to earth, other than the fact that we can't save them, but really imitating them and following the action of going into their world where they're at, meeting them where they're at and loving them. So often we just try to invite them to church and stuff. And they're like, oh, of course, you're going to invite me to your weird cultish, weirdish, traditional church building thing and all that goes on there. So they don't really like that at all. So we try to be like Christ. So we're Christ in his ministry. He didn't even just stay in the synagogues. Okay, when you look at him ministering, he didn't stay there and just preach and draw in big crowds to just preach at the synagogues. He went to shorelines. He went to villages. He went out on the countryside. He was eating with sinners, as the Pharisees said. He was with them. And so we try to go there and we just try to do life with them and show Christ's love through that. And then as we go there, we want to mentor them. We want to disciple them. So as we're there, we're connecting. We're showing like, I love and I care about you. I'm willing to be in your life. Also, I want to like help lead and guide you through the challenges you have in your life. So as we're mentoring them, we are not just going there and sharing, we're going there and we're sharing the gospel, but not just saying like, hey, this is what Jesus did. This is the Bible. This is the truth. Follow it. Do it. We're also trying to meet physical needs at the same time. So another thing that Jesus did was when he came, he did miracles. He provided for people. He healed people. He showed that he loved by caring about the little things in their life to point them to the spiritual world that they were unaware of. And so we go there. We help them in the practical things of life. We help them with homework on Wednesday nights. We teach them how to do photography. We provide some meals. Many of these kids don't even get meals. So we do all these things, and we try to walk them through life and point them back to Jesus. And then our goal is not for them to depend on us. Some of you might look at me and say, like, this is one of those guys that goes into the neighborhood that he doesn't belong in, and he's trying to be a savior to them, and he's trying to just be everything for them because they don't have everything, and this guy's privileged. Like, you might think that. But, like, our goal is really to go there, and we're wanting to point them to Christ, and we want them to get to a point where they can walk in a relationship with Christ on their own. We want them to be able to walk through life on their own without being completely dependent on us. And we want them to become a disciple of Jesus, but then also to go make disciples as well. So we want to see them go and share that with where they are at. And so practically speaking, we go out on Monday nights for a kids ministry, Tuesday nights for a teen ministry, which is a lot like a youth group. Wednesday nights we have, we call it Mission Scranton Elevate, which is really just an empowering concept. And we're going there to help them with homework. We have these different stations that help them develop in social skills and other things. And then also training them in photography with hopes that they can actually use it as an entry point for a job to get out of the projects, essentially. And then on Sundays, we then take them to church, teach them what church is all about, and just bring them there and have discipleship with them on those days. And sometimes, like, if you go in there with us, and if people are wondering who you are, and you're knocking on the door, and you're like, and they're like, who is it? Who's out there? And then you just say, Bible studies, and then they'll be like, okay, take my kid and my money and go ahead, and then you leave. Like, they would just have that trust. So, like, I try to change, like, our ministry names, our ministry nights to something, like, cool, like, yeah, come to the kids club and this children's program. The one time I'm talking to a parent, I'm like, yeah, so I'm trying to sound like super official, like we have it all together, which we don't. And I'm just like, hey, so we have this children's program, and we do these games, and we help them with these teachings. And then, like, the little kid's, like, next to me pulling on my pant leg, like, Nate, it's Bible studies. I'm like, yeah, it's Bible studies, yes. And so then everyone affectionately knows us as Bible studies, and that's super cool. So my goal today is raising awareness of who we are, what we're doing, but also I'm going to have teammates come up and share what they've learned and what God has been doing with their experience there. So our goal really, I'm not trying to recruit you to come out. If you want to come out, that's great. But I'm really just wanting you to see, like, God's glory and what he's doing in our own lives and what he's doing in their lives there as well. And so the thing I love most about this ministry is the fact that, like, we're all doing this together. We're a body of Christ as God designed us to be, to work together, love each other, help each other, and serve in this ministry with different gifts. Like, there's no way I could run this ministry, but on my own, it would utterly fail. So I love that we get to do this together, and it feels so much more like we're actually a family of God. A lot of times they'll say, hey, we're the family of God, but then you have, like, small talk with people at church and awkwardly shake hands during greeting time, and it doesn't feel like family of God. And I think we're actually getting that where, like, it doesn't take just, like, knowing stuff and listening to messages, but actively serving together. Really, God uses that to bring you together and truly be a family of God. So I'm going to ask everyone that's going to share a testimony during this time from my team to come on up. I'll give you this mic, and you guys can share. And then also, as they're coming up, if you guys have any questions, please text this number, and we're going to have a little Q&A time to answer that for you. So feel free to send that. If that doesn't work, then we'll just pass the mic around.
All right, so I've been doing Mission Scranton for a couple years, and I do Tuesday nights. And one thing about so we when we go out for us, say for me, like, we go out one time a week, so it's tempting to want to shove like stuff, like the lesson, and um, just wanting to them to understand. And it's tempting to just want to force it on them. But one thing that I've learned and experienced is that these kids have so much to teach us, and like the relationships that we have with them, and just being there for them is not so much, we're their teachers, but we're their friends, and we're their people that we walk alongside with them. And that's been something that has been a learning process for me, being vulnerable with them, uh, allowing them to see my heart and trusting them. So it's a good time to just build that connection, because they some of them have parents that, drug addicts, abuse. So we're role models in their lives. So that's just something that every week reminding myself and learning through that.
I've been going out to Mission Scranton for about 2 years now. I go out to the kids' night every Monday, and like Domingo said, we go out once a week. One thing that God has kind of taught me is patience, and not just because the kids are crazy, but because they are really crazy, but patience in the fact that we have to wait on God's timing. A lot of times I go out and I'm like, oh, I just want them to understand that Christ is the most important thing in their life, and I want them to understand that we love them, and I want them to do this, and I get so excited whenever a kid asks a really good question, but then they don't make a profession of faith or something like that. But throughout my 2 years, I've had to learn that it's not my timing and it's God's timing, and that we just have to wait for him, because ultimately he knows what's best, and he has a plan for every single night that we go out.
I started going to Mission Scranton Teen Night around this time last year. And when I first started going, it was kind of hard to find kind of where I fit in, because everyone had already built a relationship with all the kids. And then, so a few weeks I was bouncing around from small group to small group. And then one day after church, we took them to get lunch. And one of the girls, I hadn't really met her yet, so I decided I was going to go talk to her. And that day we just kind of like really clicked instantly. And so I was able to start working with her in small groups. And her name's Alondra. And so she's really, really cool. And something that's really awesome about Alondra's story is that she got saved in July of 2017, before I even started going to Mission Scranton. And so she's kind of been growing, and her desire to know God has kind of been growing, and her desire to serve has been growing. And she actually decided a few weeks ago that she was going to take a step of obedience and get baptized. So she's getting baptized in a few weeks. And so I think that's really exciting for the entire Mission Scranton team, not only teen night, but kids night, elevate night, everyone. So that's just a really big blessing that we have seen God be really faithful to this ministry.
I have been going to Tuesday night teen nights for about this whole year. I started back in September, and something that I've been learning is how much this ministry really isn't dependent on me and isn't dependent on any of us, and realizing that God is the one who really does heart change. And I think that's truly incredible, and it's really just freeing to know that we go in and we love them, and we plan lessons and serve food and play games, and all of that's great. We put in a lot of work, but when I look at the truth that God's the one doing heart change, I free myself from the burden of trying to do what only God can do. And when I'm able to hold on to that truth, it really just helps me to be more effective in the ministry. And I think it helps all of us to be more effective in the ministry.
Right. This semester, I've had the opportunity to jump on with Wednesday night with our Mission Scranton Elevate groups. The memory that comes to mind is just how grateful I am for the opportunity through CSU to be formally trained to be a teacher. And through that, I've had the opportunity to use a skill I never thought, at least on this side of graduation, I would need. On Wednesday nights, I have the opportunities to work with kids whose primary language is not English, but typically Spanish or some other language. And through that, being able to help them through homework with things specifically such as math, and help them recognize those English words and not just yet, but eventually understand the problem and just how to think critically through a language that's not their own, has been a blessing. So just really grateful to be able to be out there and be used in an unexpected way.
So I know everyone's sharing their personal testimony on Mission Scranton, but I kind of just want to encourage you guys. Obviously, not everyone is fit for Mission Scranton, or it's not really your passion or what you feel God has called you to, but I would say just be faithful to God right now where you're at, whether that be in the dorm, whether that be at church, being plugged into a local church, because that's just the biggest thing that you can do, just doing what God wants you to do where you're at. I know for me personally, I got saved in high school through my high school tennis coach. He was a substitute at a public school, which everyone knows you can't preach the gospel, so he didn't really preach the gospel. He more so showed the gospel to me and to other girls on the team, just through being there, loving us, and that's kind of what our mission is to do in Mission Scranton, and just love on the kids, use the talents, gifts, and abilities that God has given you. Like for me, I've been blessed to grow up in a bilingual home, so God has kind of just used that in my life to be able to minister to some of the kids in Mission Scranton. But yeah, so just use what God has given you and serve Him faithfully through it, and you'll see huge blessing.
So I haven't been going to Mission Scranton for very long, so I don't have a ton of background stories with people there, but I did want to talk to you guys about why I am going to Mission Scranton right now. So God has been working in me, in my heart, in my life, like He's working in all of you. And so over the past few months, it's just been a process of being broken down and seeing selfishness and seeing pride and just seeing things in me that don't reflect the character of Christ, and just He's faithful to bring me to a point where I can see that, and then invites me to do something about it, so to receive Him fully, to walk in His life. So that's been like the last few months for me, and it came to a point where I'm figuring out, okay, what do I do next? Like, put together a growth plan. You all know that. Dwight has talked to you, probably drilled it into your head, but part of my growth plan for myself was just seeing a pattern of selfish choices in what I do, how I spend my time, and just realizing the need to get outside of myself, outside of my own life, my own world. And so part of that was getting involved somewhere with people who need Jesus. So my exposure to Mission Scranton is their Instagram page, their Facebook. So many people are involved. I see Nate at church. I go to Steamtown, and he's got kids on his shoulders and hanging off his arms, and he's like making 3 trips a day just so these kids can get to church. And it's not very hard to watch the video and love these kids just by seeing them smile, seeing their impact the ministry that we're having. And so I just said to him, hey Nate, I don't know what you're gonna do with this, but I've been thinking about getting involved in Mission Scranton just because I need to do something. I need to care about people, and it's been an awesome opportunity in the last 2 months to love on these kids. All they need is a hug, a smile, for you to remember their name. Like, it's so simple, but there's Jesus even in those little things, and then to be a part of a team, to love the team members that I'm serving with. So it's been awesome, so rewarding, so fulfilling, and I've just been learning so much through that. So I'm excited about what's going on, and whatever God's doing in all of you. If you're thinking about being involved, just talk to Nate and we'll see what happens. So
Thanks, team. So even going off of that, just a thought, like Jen said, there's like small things you do out there. So like if you come out to Mission Scranton for the first time, like one person asked, what does a typical night consist of? They're probably thinking logistically, but I'll give you the other side of it. It can be really chaotic and like super messy. Like you're going into a world where they do not have like discipline and structure in their life. So then as a result, you get like the kids that are on meds and have learning disabilities are not getting help by and supported by their parents, and they bring that entire mess to us on that night. And then we got a lot of college students, and we're all trying to just like figure out how do we work within that. So within a night, you might look by the end and as far as the smoothness goes, you might think this was a disaster. Like, this was like so frustrating. This kid did not listen to what I said. I just told him to sit here, and he did everything but sit right there. But it's really, when you go out there, you have to look, and this is like true for ministry with people in general, I think. You have to look for the small things that happen. You have to look for the small, like one kid asked a really good question, or a kid sat down and listened for 5 minutes straight instead of walking around the entire time. Like, you have to look for those small little victories that kind of keeps you going. So, does someone want to answer? Maybe Michaela, because you get the logistics better than I do most of the time. What would you say a typical kids' night looks like?
Is it like before going out or the actual Monday night?
I guess like the overall like start to finish.
Okay. Well, the first thing we do, we go out is we start to pick up kids. We have a list of probably about like 25 to 30 kids that we go to each apartment, knock on their door, say, hey, it's so-and-so from Bible studies, not even Mission Scranton, because like Nate said, they don't even know what Mission Scranton is. It's Bible studies. So we pick them up. They all come up to one central building, and we pretty much play a game until all the kids end up getting up there. Now we have a meal that we provide for them. So they check in, and then they get their meal, they sit down, and then after they're done eating, we have a lesson. The lesson will usually go about 20 minutes, depending on who's teaching. Sometimes it will take forever. Nate. But it's fine. We usually have a craft or a game afterwards, and then we have small groups. Small groups is a chance for the kids to ask each leader a question if they didn't understand the lesson, and it gives the leaders an opportunity to invest in each kid a little bit more than whether just lesson time helping them find the verse in the Bible, or game time just playing a game with them. It gives each leader an opportunity to see which students are growing, where they came to start out, whenever they started coming out, where they were, and how they've grown since then.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, teen night is awesome. So we do kind of the same thing. Because they're a little bit older, they come to the building. We go to, it's the community building. It's very small, but yeah, so they usually come to us, but the ones that don't, we go and we get them. And then once they're all there and we're hanging out and we're talking, eventually we start playing a game. Ethan usually has a great game to play, and whether it be Brother, Do You Love Me, or something crazy. And then after the game, we usually have a meal, great meal. Yep, Chelsea, thank you. And after the meal, or during the meal, we just kind of make sure that we're not talking to each other as like leaders. That's a time where people, like when they're eating, they take their guard down. So that's a chance to like actually like talk to them about like life. So we make sure that we're talking with them. And after, we usually do 1 or 2 worship songs, easy, simple songs like Mighty to Save or King of My Heart, stuff like that. They love Mighty to Save. Or we used to do My Lighthouse every single week. We don't do that anymore. And then after that, we pray and we go into sort of a message or a teaching time, which is only about 15 minutes, where we sit in a circle, and it's really like, it's comfortable, it's easy. Yeah, usually they focus. Maybe some of them focus during the teaching, but yeah, and then we pray out of that, and we go into small groups, and that's really where the core of the ministry is small groups, which when we say small groups, it's usually one-on-one, especially in teen night. Like that is definitely where the core of our ministry is, making those relationships, talking about life, talking about what you're talking about in the message or the teaching, talking about whatever really. And that's pretty much it. Around 8 o'clock, we round them all up and we bring them home, and we're out of there.
Yeah, and some of the challenges we have each of those nights too is that we tried doing some devotions with the teens, which we made some good headway with some of them, but we have some kids and teens who can't read at all, so like that's a challenge we have on kids night. We have Veronica, who translates for two of our boys who primarily speak Spanish. They moved in from the Dominican Republic back in May, so like they are like overwhelmed by like just taking normal English classes and not really getting special assistance on that. So we've been able to help them out with that during that Monday night, then also Wednesday night with their English speaking homework, which is it's been pretty crazy to see that. One question we got is, what is your favorite memory from Mission Scranton? I'll let you guys take that. Maybe Micah, you want to take that one? You got to contemplate about that.
One of the best memories from Mission Scranton is, and it goes along with what you were talking about, talking about small victories, is we were having small groups, and I was with this boy named Aiden, and he was telling me about his father, and he was saying, you know, his father treats him very poorly. He's not a father to him, and he was saying how he couldn't ever forgive his father, and I was trying to point him to the gospel, how in the gospel we find forgiveness, and once we experience that, we display it, and it was in the small group that someone walked by and like smacked him on the head, and it was just totally out of nowhere, and then so I think Domingo took that boy out of the room, and so Aiden and I were talking about why is this my favorite memory, but hold on, it gets better. And then I was talking to this boy, and I was like, man, you got to forgive him. And so that boy that hit him comes back into the room, and they kind of have like this stare down, like this 13-year-old stare down. And I was like, forgive him. And then Aiden's like, I forgive you. And like, that's a miracle. Like that's small, but you're not gonna, I mean, that's what you hope for. That's what you want. And so that's something that stands out for sure.
I mean, just last week, honestly, was probably one of my favorite memories. So it was last week was canceled, 2 weeks ago. So these kids it got bad. So some of you know Amari, Nuri, and Tay, and they were just F-bombing each other. And it was bad. They like to roast each other, so we had to take them out. And as soon as I got them settled down, then like chaos happened. Micah had to come out, help me. But then two of the boys went in, and then Nuri, he stayed outside, and then I followed him. I thought he was going home, but I asked him to come sit at the steps, and then we started to talk. And I don't know, it was one of the coolest moments I've had, just one-on-one, like everyone's inside the building, and we're over here talking about just life and our dads. So I mean, it was a pretty cool moment, I would say.
Yeah, I can go. Man, you keep using the word take out, like that's weird. He means like take them outside from the building. You gotta take out this. I think I'm like trying to rack my brain. This is my third year. I'm pretty sure it was the first week of my freshman year was when Rachel and Chelsea asked me to come out and help them with worship. So it's been a long time. I think my favorite memory is probably this kid. He's 16 years old, Kenny. He's been my guy basically for the whole 3 years, and he kind of went through a rough spot this year, and I remember during that rough spot a couple of months ago, he just like I went down to his house because he didn't want to come to Bible study, so I went down, and I just sat and he played guitar because he plays guitar, and he just stopped and he's like, you know, I feel like you're the only one I can actually talk to about anything real in life. And it was like, dang, like, if I'm the only one, like, that really sucks. So it matters, like, you're talking about, like, this bubble that we get ourselves into. Like, there's people out there that don't have the kind of community that we have, the kind of friends that we have. And yeah, just walking through life with him for the last 3 years, and to have him say, like, I trust you, I completely trust you with every single thing in my life, in the darkest spot of his life so far, and to reach out to me first, it was just like crazy. It's not easy, but I think that's probably my favorite memory.
I'm going to throw this right back at you because it's kind of related. One question came through: what's one of the biggest disappointments we've had in Mission Scranton?
Yeah. Well, after that, so he goes through this whole thing, and I won't like share exactly, but it was big. It was and he comes to me and he says, "Oh, I want to come to church," and he hasn't been coming to church for a long time. And so he comes to Steamtown. He doesn't wake up so I can go and bring him to church. So he rides his skateboard all the way down the hill to come to church late. Like, that's devotion.
Especially with that hill.
Yeah, that hill. So he comes to church late, and afterwards we go to McDonald's, and we talk about, like, everything that he's going through, and he says to me, he's like, I'm saved, like, I'm telling you, and I'm like trying to walk through it. I'm like, you're not showing me that you're saved. You're not showing this fruit. And I'm like trying to walk through it, and he like speaks me through the gospel, and we have this time and we pray, and so at that point, like, we kind of celebrated because, like, okay, he actually is, like, he has accepted Christ. Like, God brought him to this low place, and he accepted Christ. Fast forward a couple weeks, we've been talking and praying and talking through devotions. He's been doing really good. And then all of a sudden, he just stops coming out. He stops reaching out to me. I'll text him, hey, you want to come to church with us? Doesn't answer. And now he's finally come out. The last time we were out, and I had this really rough conversation with him where he just told me, like, yeah, I don't know where I was at that point. And he was like, I was just scared, and so I'm not really, like, there. I don't believe in religion. Why would I believe in religion when obviously, like, this is all just a coincidence? Life doesn't mean anything. And it was really tough to, like, see that in somebody that, like, I'm so close to. And he told me, like, he looks around at, like, walls, and he looks around at, like, people, and he just, like, sees emptiness. And I was like, that's the point. Like, without God, there is no meaning in this life. And just, like, trying to walk through that with him, and he's like, well, but science this, and I'm like, man, I'm not going to argue with you about science. Like, that's not what I'm good at. So, but, like, I will tell you the truth of the gospel and what it's done with me. So, yeah, that's where we are right now. Definitely really difficult. Just celebrating a high and then immediately, like, completely falling off. So.
Yeah, like, going off of that, like, when you look at and you see some of our social media posts, it looks cute and fun and great, but it's definitely like in reality messy. Like we go out there and we invest so much into these kids. We build close relationships, and then we go through the whole roller coaster of life with them. And like I've been out late at hospitals with kids and trying to navigate some issues with family that's really hard to see happen. And then the tough thing is that the kids will be in the projects there, but then it might move out, like where they'll just get kicked out because their family's not paying anything. And so like, you don't know, like we have the kids there for a short time. We don't know how long they're going to be there for. So you can really invest a lot. And then I can think of some kids now where it's like, oh man, she is so close. Like she is like engaged with the teaching, but she's not there yet. And then they move. I have no idea where they're at. We were really fortunate with Sean and Tay, two boys we're super close with. They got evicted and moved out, and we had no idea where they were at. And then their mom's phone was like knocked out and wasn't paid for probably. And then somehow we got in contact again through like kids at their school and found out where they're at, and now we're like connected again, which is cool. But yeah, there's a lot of heartbreak, and then the biggest heartbreaking thing is to realize when you're pouring into them, you're sharing the truth, you cannot save them. You cannot make that decision for them. We do not try to manipulate and say, like if you're really feeling it right now, like come forward and like say this prayer and you're gonna get saved. Like it doesn't work that way. Like we're not the Holy Spirit, and so it's really tough to then just share that truth, pour in, and then ask God and trust God with like saving them. Because unfortunately, in all reality, is that all the kids and people we work with and parents, like not all of them are going to go to heaven. There's going to be a lot that go to hell probably, and that's the sobering thought. And then it's more sobering to realize like there's more people like that elsewhere, back in your hometowns and cities as well, that are not getting reached with that. Another question they asked is, where have we seen the most growth in our ministry within the past year?
Well, the first thing I thought of was whenever I first started coming out about 2 years ago, there's a kid named Corey. Some of you have probably seen him. I know a good portion of you actually know his family very well. Whenever I first came out, this kid would not listen. He literally would run around like crazy during lesson time, during games. He would refuse to participate. Crafts, he would sometimes rip it up and throw it away. Like this kid was just totally rambunctious. But fast forward to now, although sometimes we do still have some problems with him. I mean, he does have ADHD, so it's a little bit crazy. But he actually sometimes asks really good questions, and he has developed like a ton of growth. He will sit there during a lesson, even if his friend Jeremiah, who's not there, he always asks, is Jeremiah there? Is Jeremiah there? But even if he's not there, he usually will sit down and be obedient. And if we say, hey, can you just be quiet for another 5 minutes? He'll be like, okay, I can do 5 minutes. And so that's just the first kid that came in my mind, is just him just being rambunctious and not listening and refusing to do anything that anybody told him to do. Even though now we still struggle a little bit, he's still 10 times better than what he was 2 years ago whenever he first started coming out.
First thing I think of is the way that we interact as like a family. My freshman year and even into my sophomore year, it was kind of not a great team dynamic. It was small, and we didn't really get along that well. Like we did, but we didn't at the same time. But second semester of my sophomore year, we had a bunch of people join, and it just like exploded into this like family dynamic that I can't even like explain. I'm sure you guys have like felt that, whether you're serving in church or whatever ministry. Like it seems like if you're not like the greatest friends, you're still like you're a family. And I think that's really cool, the way that we've grown from not great relationships to like seriously, I keep saying it, but like we're a family. especially like I feel that with teen night, but even more this year, like with the entire team, which is something that's like a testimony to what Nate has done and what Nate has instilled into us is like we're not just our separate nights, we're an entire team. So that's cool.
So I'm going to wrap up the Q&A with answering a few questions here. We're not going to get to all of them. Some of you are asking, like, how can I get involved? Like, this sounds great and stuff. And to be honest with you, right now, we are limited with how many spots we even have open. We have open spots on Wednesday nights for our homework and kind of development with other fun stations like building stuff with Legos, teaching kids how to draw, photography, literacy. So there's a few things there, but we need some more people on that night. But right now we are in the works of trying to get into another inner city community that's about 2 miles above us. So we are praying that we can get in there. It's been delayed, and I don't know if it's going to happen. I hope it does. But I was hoping it would happen this semester and expand us. But it's looking like we might start making connections there, if anything at all, in the summertime and then the fall. So one thing you can do is like, okay, I might not have a spot for you now, but you can fill out an application still. We have applications at the Underground Cafe if you want to give towards us so we can especially keep buying some food and other things for the kids that they need. You can give at the Underground Cafe. We have I got a little cardboard box I made up there that Michaela's going to improve with something else, but you can put some money in there anyways. So you can apply, and like my goal is like, I think if you guys apply and you're considering doing it next year, we'd like to start the conversation now and work at integrating you into that. And if it's not Mission Scranton, I mostly would just call you to get involved in your local church. If you're not at a local church and you're hopping around, find one. It's not going to be perfect, but serve there. That's the biggest thing. If you're immobile right now, like there's so much that God can do through you. Like you are so incapable and messed up, but then you're also so capable and able to minister because of what God can do through you. So I'd call you to do that where you're at on campus and in the local church especially. And so someone asked, what's my vision for Mission Scranton? And so it's really, I picture us like helping the local church, where especially in Scranton, because there's so much poverty and there's a lot of challenges there. The local church struggles discipling within their own body and keeping that going and functioning well. And so outreach ends up getting dropped off. So I'm the one that wants to come in and help partner with churches and be their outreach. They can channel all their resources and people to us, and we can do outreach with our system that we have. And so I'm really wanting to partner with local churches to reach unreached inner city communities in Scranton, maybe someday Wilkes-Barre, and maybe more. We had a guy named Kimpy. Actually, you saw him at the one chapel if you were here. He served with us, and now he's actually doing Mission Yangon. It's the city of Myanmar. He's doing pretty much what we were doing and replicating that in that city. So for all these guys that are going to graduate and head out, I'm hoping that some of them can actually do this with their church, or they can start up a ministry and do this in other cities as well. So really, I don't view Mission Scranton as becoming a big monster that's just like we're just marketing, owning all these different things and satellites are ministering in cities. I just want to like keep people going and empower the church and empower people to go out and make disciples where they're at, essentially. And one thing that someone asked is probably not what they were trying to get at, but what future plans, how have your future plans changed with Mission Scranton? I'm trying to work towards being full-time and running this and then still being connected to the school. And one thing I really just want to challenge you guys with, knocking over papers here. Cass, can you turn to the Luke passage on the slide there? I really just want to take this and share what I've done, not because I'm great, just because of the grace of God in my own life and changing my heart, but for me to continue to be here and to run this ministry, I've given up. Like, if you're going to do ministry, you're going to give up things. And for me, like, back in 2016, I was supposed to be married. I was engaged right out of college, and my whole focus was my own American dream, my comfort, my life. And we both were heading towards Mission Scranton being part of our little dream, but then that split off. And God actually got a hold of my heart and was like, you need to do inner city ministry. You need to be here. Like, this is where I have you. And I couldn't shake that. I tried to shake that. I tried to convince like her, like, hey, this is where we need to go. But it was obvious that we were going different directions. And so after being together for about 4 years, like, that relationship ended. And so that was like one of the hardest decisions I've had to make. But it's worth it. Like, for a few years, 3 years later now, it's like, wow, like, if I would have just chased my own dream, then, like, I don't know if Mission Scranton would still be continuing. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have. I wouldn't be where I'm at spiritually now. I'd be a miserable guy with maybe a lot of money. Like, I wouldn't, like, it would be awful. And so my challenge to you is really in Luke 9, starting in 23. It says, he was saying to them all, if anyone wishes to come after me, must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses and forfeits himself? So, like, that concept doesn't, it's like it's a radical concept where it's like you gotta give up your life to find your life. You gotta, and really what it is like your own selfish life, what you desire and what the world tells you how you should live. You gotta be willing to give that up so that you can live the life that God has for you. It's not about you. He died for you. And like, our response to minister is not because we feel bad for these kids because they have a lot of challenges. Our response is because we have been saved. We see what life is actually all about, and we want to share that with other people. And so we're willing to drop our life because we realize it's not worth it. It's not where it's at because it's just going to leave you empty. You're always going to come up empty. But whenever you live for God, you are so satisfied. And I don't fully accomplish that. One half of my day, it might be like, yes, I love this, living for God. Second half of my day, it's like, oh, I wish I had this and that. You know, like, it's a battle, you know, like, it's not easy. But I'm telling you right now, like, I've been where you're at as a student. I've been in a spiritually dark place. I've been selfish, focused on a girl, focused on money, focused on soccer, focused on all those things. And I would have been sitting like back there towards the right during chapel, just immobile, not really passionate about anything with God. And it was a miserable place. But now, by the grace of God, to where I'm at now, like, and now I know what it means to truly live. So for you right now, there's many of you here right now, you don't even know what it's like to truly live. You're not alive. You're not experiencing that. If you're soaking in this information here and you're not doing anything with it, if you're not amazed by God and just like, wow, and like just amazed by that love, his awesomeness, then if you're not going to have that, then you're not going to have worship, which is just ministry and serving people. You can't have ministry without God being awesome to you. If you're just doing ministry without God, you're just trying to prove to people that you're a good person. So my challenge to you is, what is it in your life right now that is holding you back? What is it in your life right now that you need to surrender to God? What do you need to do to put yourself in a position to be satisfied by him fully and for your life to be full in him? And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to just sit there? Satan's going to love that. He loves that when you just sit there with all that information. And then if we did that, we'd have a housing unit of a place with 250 housing units of people that wouldn't be hearing the gospel right now. They wouldn't have that. Imagine what we do if all of us do that. Imagine what would happen there. So right now, we're going to transition. Wow. This is why they say I go long in lesson time. So